All right, so this is gonna be a review of Mission Impossible 7. I think this is 7. Dead Reckoning Part 1. So seems like this one's gonna be a two-parter. It's directed by Christopher McQuarrie again. I think he's been around since Rogue Nation. So Rogue Nation, Fallout, and then this one. I really like Rogue Nation, but I loved Fallout. I mean, Fallout. I think pretty much everybody loved that one, right? The best one. Just great action scene and action set piece after another. It was so much fun, and I really like the story, and I like the characters. So I'm expecting a lot from this movie because of how much I loved that one. But I'll say how I feel about this one in a second. So in this, there's this AI that's being used, and I guess it's really advanced. It ends up getting or becoming self-aware, and so now it operates on its own pretty much, and it has access to so much information. Like it can pretty much easily get into government agencies and get secret information and things like that. So the entire network is compromised. So Ethan Hunt, once again played by Tom Cruise, gets sent to find one of the parts of the key that is can be used to either control or destroy this entity. After he finds out about what's going on, obviously him being the hero in the situation, he thinks it should be destroyed. He thinks that nobody should have access to this. But his own government, along with the other governments around the world, they want to get both parts of the key so that they can control it, right? Of course, so that they get a leg up on other governments, other countries, and things like that. He's essentially gone rogue because everybody's after him. So he has to get his old team together. Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg in this. That's Luther and Benji. But along with them, he also works with this other character, Grace, played by Haley Atwell. She seems to be just a pickpocket or whatever, but she turns out to be more than that and be more involved with what's going on. But yeah, it's just about getting those two parts of the keys and all the different things they have to do to get that done, so that they can potentially destroy the entity. So, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed by this one. I don't think this one's as good as Fallout. It might not even be as good as Rogue Nation. I can't remember. I have some issues with the story and some of the things that happen with some of the characters. We'll get back to that. But positives. Tom Cruise is amazing as usual, or most of the time at least. He's got great screen presence. He's great with the stunts, great with the action, the choreography. He's getting up there in age, but he's still able to deliver, and I think he's great in the movie. I do like the main team still, like him with Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg, Benji and Luther. I still like them together. I like seeing them work together. Things not really go right and them have to figure things out. I think they work well as a team and have a nice camaraderie with each other. But especially with Tom Cruise and Haley Atwell, right? Grace and Ethan, I think they have really good chemistry. Really, from the moment they first meet each other, there's kind of a flirtatious nature to it, but they're still kind of keeping each other at arm's length, kind of. And I think it really works. And there's some fun moments with them, some funny moments with them, like in that chase that they get into. I think that was in the trailer. That was really fun. I think they have really good interactions. I think as far as the character interactions, I think theirs is the best between Ethan and Grace. Once again, the action and the set pieces, they're great. I like that they come up with like creative ways to keep these sequences exciting. Like I really like the stuff in the airport where they're trying to figure out who the person is that wants to buy the other half of the key, because they assume that person probably has the other half, and they can figure out where the key goes. Because that's another thing, is they don't even know the two parts of the key. They don't even really know what it's to, or what or where to access wherever they can control the entity or destroy it or whatever. So that's also part of it. But then they're in the airport and it's chaotic. There's people going after them. Haley Atwell's involved, and she's going back and forth with Tom Cruise. And then also there's a bomb that gets involved and riddles and things. And I thought that was a lot of fun. The entity itself is interesting, where it can do certain things and mess with Ethan's communications with the rest of his team and things like that. I like the idea of Ethan being the only one that's willing to destroy it, right? Do the responsible thing. And that's why the entity is so focused on getting rid of him, because they know, the entity even knows, like the governments, they just want to use it for themselves. I like that aspect of it. Man, there's some good stuff here. But I don't think it fully comes together, right? And that's where we get to my negatives here. Um, I think it's a little messy. I think it's a little all over the place. I think because it's dealing with this concept with the entity and all that, being essentially omnipotent and things like that, and there are all the different details and the government's involved and the characters involved. I do think it gets messy. I think it does. An example: there's a character in this, Paris, played by Palm Clementieff. I'm pretty sure played Mantis in the Guardians movies. Um, I had no idea what was going on with that character for most of this movie. I knew she was going after Ethan, but I was like, I guess she must be attached to one of the governments or something like that. Turns out she's working for the entity and she's working under Gabriel. We'll talk about Gabriel in a second. Um, I, that feels weird. Like maybe other people picked up on it, but I didn't. I didn't know what was going on with that character. Ethan fights her a couple times and things like that, but I did not know, right? Like she goes to this get together or this party or whatever is going on because they were negotiating things with the key and all that, and she's she's got white on her face and everything. She looks like she just escaped from Arkham Asylum, right? Like she's got some Harley Quinn shit going on. It's like, wow, it just feels kind of out of place based on everybody else. Like nobody else is dressed like that, right? Nobody else has similar costume design. And then by the end, when I'm like, okay, I guess she works for Gabriel, there's some things that go on, some betrayals and things like that. And I was like, wow, I can't fully follow what's going on here. Like by the end of it, with the characters and different things going on, like on that train and things, it was kind of hard for me to keep things straight at times, right? Like because it has this concept. There's a lot of explaining, there's a lot of exposition, and usually, in that situation, it makes things a little bit more confusing to understand, just a little bit. Then there's Gabriel, let's play by Asai Morales. And he's the main antagonist in this, pretty much. He's the human that the entity's using to get things done. And he has a past with Ethan Hunt. And it feels like that's retconned and kind of forced in here, the past that he has. And because this is a part one, it doesn't really get fully fleshed out here. It's kind of flashbacks and things. But I've seen all these movies, and I could be wrong, 'cause it's been some years, but I don't remember this ever being mentioned. And this is like Ethan's origin story. It's like, so it kind of feels forced. It feels like you need a human antagonist for the entity in order for this to work, but then you also want there to be automatic tension and drama between the protagonist and the antagonist, between Ethan Hunt and Gabriel. So you involve this backstory, but you don't really flesh it out enough, and it feels retconned. It feels forced, and I didn't really get much from Gabriel. He didn't really leave much of an impression on me. The actor's good, and there's some charisma there, but for the most part, as the main antagonist, or at least the acting main antagonist, didn't really do much for me. So when all this is going on with him, and when Ethan, there's this question of whether Ethan kills him or doesn't or whatever, I didn't really care all that much, to be honest. I also think the length is a problem here. I don't remember how long Fallout was, but I don't remember having that problem because, it's set piece after set piece. And, also I think the story is also good, but I feel like it always kept itself moving. This does that most of the time, but there are times where I was like, you're letting this go on for too long. Like that, like the chase when they're handcuffed, Ethan and Grace. It just, there's a point in that where I was like, it's towards the end of it, but I was like, man, this is going on for too long. It's like at this point, it feels like you're kind of padding out the runtime with this. I still like the action set pieces, the sequences and things. They're great, especially to see on the big screen. Very well done, top notch, really. And there's some interesting concepts with the entity, like I said, with everything going on with AI and things. It feels very topical. Feels relevant. And I like at least the main group of characters, still, like Ethan Hunt, Benji, Luther, and also Grace, this newer character. But the story, I think, didn't really come together for me, I don't think. And then by the end, I was kind of disappointed. It does feel like it just kind of ends, and I don't feel like I got enough of a feel for the story, the entity, where we're going, and so it ended up disappointing me. But I still think it's a good movie. I still think there's plenty of good things here, so I'm gonna give it a good enough. But anyway, that's it. That's Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Subscribe, and we're done.